left that. And by the time I knew her, she was deputy county treasurer in Akron. However, she functioned as the county treasurer because the head was an alcoholic, who was also a man. She was well known in Democratic Party politics, attended numerous national political conventions, knew FDR and Eleanor Roosevelt, and so on. She was unconventional. She was very independent. She was rather loud and boisterous, and frankly a bit wacky. To me, Aunt Mary was the future for women. She was out in the public sphere, though she had a husband and children, and her work outside the home had meaning beyond taking care of others. I've thought often of girls in the past, and even now, who don't have an Aunt Mary. Think of the talent as a society, because those girls don't have a role model to show them all the choices that were and are available to them as women. Okay.
Thank you, Linda. Our next speaker today is Phyllis Ellis, who's going to talk a little bit about her hero.
Well, as most of you know, when I light candles, I light it for my niece, Barbara. So here's a picture. So you all know who I'm talking about. A hero isn't always the person that rescues you from a fire or saves you from drowning, but a hero is someone that supports you through good times and bad. Some of my past heroes were my father and my husband. In the present, I would say my good friend Jill, but also someone who was struggling to live and make me more appreciative of my life and how I should live it. My sister Barbara was much older than me and married when I was only 6 months old, so I basically grew up with my 6 nieces. My nieces were blonde, blue-eyed, except for the third girl that was born on July 1st, 1953. She was dark hair and brown eyes like my sister, and my sister Barbara called her Barbara. Growing up, Barbara always stood out from her sisters. She was quiet and reserved, but dedicated to her cello and very smart in school. After little Barbara graduated from Hunter College, she became a professional cellist and played with various symphonies and also concerts for entertainers like Frank Sinatra, Tom Jones, and other singers. She met her husband, Michael Cummings, a violinist, while they both were playing for the same symphony. They later married, and they still live in New York City on 84th Street in Central Park West. On October 1st, 1985, changed Barbara's life forever. While she was walking across the empty, dimly lit stage in Newark, New Jersey Symphony Hall, she was looking at her sheet music and did not see the open pit, the one where they bring up pianos to the stage. She fell 30 feet, breaking her back in several places, and pulverizing her heels. I know I was going to cry now. Okay. She spent the next 8 weeks in a hospital and several more weeks recovering at home, learning how to walk again. Painful as it was, she was determined she would walk. Because of her back injury, she realized she could no longer be able to play the cello professionally again. I'm sorry, I was going to cry now. Okay, I'm getting together. That didn't stop her from starting over and going back to Hunter College on a full scholarship and graduating with a PhD in 1994. The fall of '95, she began teaching English and writing at LaGuardia Community College in New York. During the summer months, Barbara and Michael would travel to Europe, South America, Cuba, Russia, and even found time to visit her aunt, Phyllis, me, here in Georgia. Okay, now I can see better. I remember one time when Barbara and I took a long walk, and she talked about her pain in her feet. And this is why, and this is how she felt it was important for her to keep walking. I asked her, how do you deal with the pain? Her response was, "I've learned to put it in my back pocket." In 2009, while they were in Italy, Barbara was abruptly hit with a detached retina, and even after surgery, her eye was clouded with, as she explained, "It's like looking through a black spider web." It was difficult for her to read her students' work and struggle to grade the papers, but she continued to teach. January 2016, her life was thrown another challenge as she was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. She took an early retirement and began the hard journey of chemo and radiation. She is determined to beat this disease and lives her life as normal as she can. She writes poetry, paints, and is taking art classes, writing classes, even joined a French book club where they speak only in French and read in French. And also walks 20 New York City blocks every morning. Her doctors are amazed that after various tests and imaging, they can hardly see the cancerous tumor. Most people would have been dead months ago from this disease. Her mother had colon cancer and had died about 4 months after it had spread to her pancreas. Barbara is fully aware of what can happen to her, but she has, "I have too many things I still want to do. I'm not ready to die." 3 times she had to go to the emergency room and have the bile duct replaced, and then 3 weeks ago she had back surgery. When she had the accident back in the 80s, she had surgery on the L3 and L5. This time it was L4. The cause could be from the chemo and radiation and the fact that her back had been broken years ago. As I spoke with her last night, she said she was feeling much better and that they were getting ready to go out for dinner and attend a concert at Lincoln Center, which, by the way, they probably will walk the 20 blocks. She is such a positive person, and I'm in awe of her and feel she is the wind beneath my wings in my life. She calls me every month, and we talk and support each other. Her husband said to me that he knows when she is talking to me on the phone because she laughs a lot. I didn't realize I was that funny. When I told her about my telling her story to our church, she said to me, "No, you are the wind beneath my wings."
Thank you for that, Phyllis, and thank you, Linda. I'm going to provide our third reflection, this time on the role of mentors. Who here has served as a mentor before, whether formally or informally? Wonderful. Thank you. I'm a big fan of some of the changes we've seen over the last few decades. The internet, for instance, electric cars, medical advances, environmental consciousness, and excellent television shows, just to name a few. These changes are worthy of our praises. But as with all advances, there are some values that are inevitably swept aside and lost to make room for the new. With the rise of intellectual self-reliance, this idea that we needn't value the wisdom of others because we can find all the wisdom we need from the internet seems insidious. Not only has this thinking created a lack of interpersonal skills since we spend so much time online, but our society becomes more and more siloed. As a result, we become increasingly more unhappy in our jobs and in our personal lives. A small but noticeable and meaningful consequence of this siloism, for lack of a better word, is that mentorship, a long-valued gift of wisdom and skill, seems more needed than ever, and yet less attractive because of the interpersonal skills required for the transaction. But what are we missing out on when we lose our mentors? Physicist and astronaut Sally Ride became the first American woman in space in 1983. Ride's graduate school professor, Dr. Arthur Walker, was her lifelong mentor and was the first to encourage her to apply to NASA's astronaut corps. She said he instilled confidence and made me believe that I could accomplish what I set out to accomplish. American business tycoon Warren Buffett is often considered the most successful investor in the 20th century. Little known fact, The Berkshire Hathaway CEO mentored Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates. Gates first met Buffett at a dinner organized by Gates' mother, where the two spoke about business and philanthropy. Gates admits that over the years he has continued to turn to Buffett for advice on various subjects. Now, I'm no Sally Ride or Bill Gates, but I have also appreciated my mentorship relationships. Luckily for me, in the formation process of the UUA, there is a mandatory mentorship program ministers must participate in for the first 3 years of their fellowshipped ministry. I'm in my final month of such a mentorship with Reverend Jeff Jones, who until recently served the UU Church in Marietta, Georgia, Emerson. I like to say that our professional relationship was kismet. Never being too shy to ask for what I want, I walked into his church 6 years ago and asked him for an unpaid internship, one in which he would be required to supervise me over the course of a year. After seeking the board's approval, he agreed. After my internship ended and I was in search of a formal mentor relationship, I knew I still had much more to learn from Jeff. I asked him to play this important role, and he again agreed, saying, "I always wanted to be a supervisor and a mentor. I consider it a privilege to pay back what was given to me and to invest in the next generation of our faith's leaders." You can imagine what a gift this answer was to me. And he has served in this capacity for years now, never once making me feel as though my time with him was a burden on an overtaxed minister already. Instead, thanking me for our stimulating discussions, building me up, and encouraging me along the way. The match was excellent, in my opinion. He, a stickler for rules, a man dedicated to living his principles out, someone who is calm, introverted, intentional, and chooses his words thoughtfully. Me, on the other hand, willing to bend the rules if necessary, moved by heart, excitable, obviously, an extrovert in all manner, and consequently a verbal processor. It seems I needed a person just like him to balance me out as I made my way into ministry. He's never attempted to change how I minister, though it may be very different from him, but rather encouraged me to embrace my me-ness in my ministry and live into its potential. Before I knew it, that still small voice inside my head sounded a lot like him. And in moments of doubt, I could hear his gentle encouragement. His presence in my life has been a joy, and his generosity of wisdom and experience has been an absolute gift to my ministry. One of the delights of entering into final fellowship with the UUA is being eligible to become a mentor myself. Assuming I pass my final renewal, I'll be qualified to become a mentor as early as February of next year. Though given our proximity to seminaries, it might be 10 years or so before I actually get the chance. During our last conversation, I again thanked Jeff for our time together, and he closed out the meeting by saying, "Just promise me you'll mentor someone during your career. You'll come to understand what a gift these conversations have been to me too." The wheel keeps turning, getting, giving, learning, teaching. Giving back, it seems, passing on wisdom rather than hoarding it, that is the only proper way to thank a mentor. And we've shared 3 personal stories of mentors and heroes, and I hope they've inspired you to reflect on your own experiences. I invite you to join Linda's and Phyllis's and my words by saying aloud the name or the names of those heroes, role models, and mentors who have positively influenced your life. If you want to raise them into the air now.
Jack Simpson.
Jan Lester.
I encourage you to reflect on the ways you can similarly influence the lives of others, whether it be in your former career field, a passion like writing, painting, or singing, or with your commitment to shopping locally, treating others with kindness, or simply living out your faith. our influence reaches further than we could possibly imagine. Use it for good. Amen. Generosity is a spiritual discipline. Because of your generosity this morning, you have a nice, uplifting building to